Hello everybody, my name is William Porter. Welcome to this edition of Storytelling Time. This program is brought to you by Black Entrepreneurs Network. And we have with us today Ms. Willa Brigham. And it's so great having you with us, Willa.
Thank you so very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Now this first segment will be about your background. But before we get to that, I'd like for you to tell our audience what you do now professionally.
Professionally, I am an inspirational speaker, storyteller. I travel the country and the world making speeches on inspiration, common sense, humor. Do not ask me about organizational skills. That is not my set. But I have the best time in the world, my granny says, running my mouth and getting paid for it.
Okay. Well, I looked at your website, and I can read to our audience a more comprehensive aspect of what you do. And listen to this. Willa is a North Carolina treasure who is equal parts storyteller, inspirational speaker, motivational speaker, performing artist, writer, and a 2-time Emmy Award winner. Now it goes on to say that there is nothing Willa loves more than performing, singing, making people of all ages smile while making a difference in her community. So what I want to ask you is, speaking of community, it's not just the Raleigh-Durham area where this program is being taped, but I understand that your community is much more expansive. Tell us about that.
Have contract, will travel. I have traveled all over the country, telling stories, giving speeches. And the most wonderful part about it is people pay you to do it, but you have to do it exceptionally well, and that's not a brag. I have had the opportunity to stand on cruise ships and tell stories and get standing ovations. It's an opportunity to share your love for what you do with an audience that's willing to listen. Hopefully they will comprehend. Hopefully they will have something to take home with them. It's an opportunity for you to think and reflect, to laugh, to engage, and leave feeling a little bit better about the world and all of its wonderful opportunities than when you came.
Okay. Now, as I was reading that piece about what you do professionally, I noticed that you made the distinction between inspirational speaker and motivational speaker. Tell us the difference between the two.
The difference for me is inspirational. I tell you what I have done to make a difference, and I saw the results of how I did it. So what I am giving you is firsthand experience on what you could possibly do as an individual yourself, be it in your community, your family, wherever you are. Motivational is me giving you step by step in order to accomplish a specific goal, which in reality is totally up to you, because you can lead the horse to water, but you cannot make him drink.
Well, let's go to your background now. While growing up, when did you acquire a passion for storytelling, writing, and maybe even some of the other things that you do now professionally?
I am my mother's only daughter, but I have 4 brothers, 2 older and 2 younger. So I did whatever they did. And then they tried to put me out because I was a girl and I was making their brothers and their buddies feel bad because they couldn't throw as hard or hit as hard or run as fast. So Mama said, baby, you're going to have to do your own thing. Mama sang all the time. She sang in the morning when we woke up. She sang at night when we went to bed. She sang. And so you act like the people who raised you. So I sang everything from brush your teeth, brush them nice and clean. Because I wanted my kids to do what they do well. And I found it makes a difference if you sing it as opposed to just saying it. Now, my girlfriends say I've been telling stories forever because I always made our adventures sound much more exciting than they actually were. So I embellished. When I had children and I told them stories or I read them stories, I made it much more interesting to the point where my firstborn did not want to see a story read from the book. He wanted me to tell it because, number one, he was always the hero. He always got a chance to add to the story. And because I was great at ad-libbing, it evolved into whatever we wanted it to be. When the second one came along, it was already established. Mom can read a story, but you want her to tell you one, says the oldest. And so I told. When they went to school, of course, you volunteer. We had an opportunity to travel all over the country. Corporate America has been very good to us. And I'm the kind that wanted to travel anyway, so it was just perfect for me. After you get settled, finding your local church, finding your hairdresser, finding the library, and your book club, now you're ready to volunteer at your kid's school. And as a volunteer, I always went in as a storyteller, to the point where they would request that I would come in as a storyteller. And the biggest surprise was when the library asked me to come tell stories and they would pay me. I didn't know it was such a thing that you could get paid to tell stories. Are you kidding? I mean, everybody at home that sat on the front porch of your grandma's house need to know that they can get paid to do this, but you have to do it well. So that's where it blossomed from, and it has evolved ever since. So once I told the story that I made up, now my son wants me to tell it again. I can't tell it again because it changes every time I tell it. This clever little fella at 5 years old took his play school tape recorder and recorded me telling the story so he could have the same story. At that point, I realized I had to write it down. And I've been writing them ever since. It just depends on what I want to teach. You educate, motivate, entertain via story. Do you want him to brush his teeth? Then you write about Stinky Johnson, the little skunk that didn't want to brush his teeth. You want him to eat healthy? You write healthy, happy habits. Healthy food builds a healthy body. A healthy body builds a healthy mind. And so on. And that's how it evolved.
It reminds me a long time ago when my kids were about 5 or 6 years old, I used to, actually a little younger than that maybe, but anyway, I used to tell them stories. I think one was Mickey the baseball player and Charlie the mosquito, and they were small, and of course we wanted them to go to sleep. That was my objective. And so I told them the story, and of course eventually they appeared to enjoy it. And more recently, my daughter asked me, well, what is your passion? What is your calling? Something to that effect. And I told her, apparently telling stories. And of course now I do that via the books that I write. So there is a connection.
Exactly. And the story is your story. Can it change? Of course it can. It evolves as you evolved. Whatever lesson I wanted to teach, I would put it in a story. So I don't have to say, you know, you really should share. Share. No, you really should share. But if you put it in a story, they will come up with the resolution themselves. If you have more than enough, there's plenty for everybody. So why not share? And you never have to say share. You don't have to tell them what the story has already told them because they are clever enough to get it.
Well, it's pretty obvious, Willa, that you're a master storyteller. You have that history, and it goes way back to when you first got a passion of telling stories. But do you have a preference as far as all the things that you do between telling stories, and I know you're an author, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. Do you have a passion between telling stories and being a performing artist and doing some of the other things that you do?
I am one of those busy women. I like to do a lot of stuff. And I like to share it with someone else because I figure if I can do it, they can too. There's no need of anyone being bored when there are so many options available. And with the internet, you can literally watch it on the film and teach yourself how to do whatever it is. So for me, performing is me being a ham. My granny said I was always a little ham. What did she call me? A talking parrot? A parrot. I would never be quiet. All the way from Tuskegee, Alabama to Birmingham on a Greyhound bus, I didn't shut down. By the time we got there, she was exhausted. So I was her parent. But for me, it allows me an opportunity to do the things I love to do. I love performing in front of a crowd because I'm a ham. I love teaching others that they can too because they have what it takes. They just don't know they are ready. So that's where I come in to show them that it can be done and they can imitate what they see. And I love that. I love creating because it gives me that freedom of mind to create something that has not been created. There's nothing new under the sun. It just hasn't been done the way I am doing it. So it allows me to do that. I love writing because it allows my creative imagination to go wild. So yes, you can have talking flowers and talking bugs and worms that want to come home and wrap themselves around your toe. I mean, why not? You're only limited by your creative imagination. And if you cannot use your creative imagination to create, what's the purpose? It allows you to go beyond the immediate. Songs, stories, poems, art, everybody needs a quilt. I have 145 that need to be finished. I am a topper, and get this, I write about it. I am a topper, yes I am. I am a topper, yes sir, yes ma'am. I love to make tops. Now, I have gotten to the point where I have gotten other people to quilt them because I like to make tops. There's more than one way to kiss a frog. So I do it.
Well, it's obvious that you have passion for what you do. But tell me this, why do you think having a passion for whatever you do is so important in today's society?
What's that line? If you don't fall for something, you'll fall for anything. You need to fall for something good. You need to find that thing that puts that spark in your voice, that desire in your heart, that pep in your step, that thing that brings you joy. Surround yourself with those things that bring you joy and you will be joyful. And in doing so, it's contagious. Others will see you are happy and it just might rub off. It's amazing what a smile will do. Someone that looks like a curmudgeon, say something nice. Hi, how you doing? I love that scarf you're wearing. It makes them feel a little bit better. They might walk away a little bit taller. It may have dropped that gloom and doom that was hanging over them. But if you don't have it, you can't share it. So I choose to be joyful. I choose to do the things I enjoy. I choose to share because it might make a difference in someone else's life. I choose to be happy.
Well, I tell you, I can verify that because, of course, before we started the interview today, you made a comment about my sweater. And so that made me feel very good. And so, but anyway, let's go back to your background in Alabama, Tuskegee.
Yes.
Alabama. And you were at home for quite a while, but eventually you left home and you attended college. So just as you had influences at home early on, what were some of your influences after you left home and attended college?
I left home in '70 to go to Alabama State University. HBCU gave me an opportunity to expand my life because you only know where you are familiar with. So college for me was a great adventure. I met Oline Underwood, one of my physical education instructors. My degree is in health and physical education, and I went on to get a master's in it. So I want everybody to be happy and healthy and strong. Oline saw in me what was there My mother had told me, so I knew who I was, but she just enhanced what I was to become. She says, you're going to make a difference in a whole lot of lives, so get busy. I said, okay. So we started by volunteering at various organizations at school. I went on to be a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. After that, graduating, I went to Indiana and I volunteered with the student African American group because that was a time when minorities were few at Indiana University. But I had gotten a scholarship because the athletic director was an alumni of Alabama State University. And I did have the grades, thank you very much. It was a wonderful experience. I worked with the ombudsman's office, and I had no idea what an ombudsman was. But they had an opportunity to interact with all students from everywhere in all kinds of capacities, and I was a part of that deal. It was eye-opening and fun. You can learn a lot if you just take the time to listen and explore. Volunteer somewhere. It's good for your soul.
Well, I tell you what you said about this professor
Yes.
being an influence
Oline
on you.
Underwood.
It reminds me of when I was in college. I took this history class and actually was a freshman and didn't have very good study habits at the time. But this one particular professor came in impeccably dressed and very influential. But it was a large class, about 45 or 50 people, and I was sitting over to the side toward the back. To make a long story short, I failed the course. Okay. So I had to take the course over again, and when I took the course over again, I got a B. I had straightened up by the time I took it again. But anyway, I went to his office, and I wanted to get some information, and when I stepped in his office, because of the size of the class, I told him, well, you probably don't know me. And especially since I failed this course the first time. But he said, no, I know you, Mr. Porter. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. Now, I was a freshman, 19, 18 years old, something like that. So that had a big impression on me. Plus, he was an excellent professor. So it reminds me of influences after I had left home, similar to your situation. So.
Interesting. Like I said, Oline said, you're going to do great things. She was the one that encouraged me to run for Miss Hornet. I did not win Miss Hornet, which was the mascot, but I won Miss Congeniality. Too cool. I never would have run because I am not one to run for those kind of beauty contest type things. That wasn't me, but her encouragement led me to do it. She said, see, I told you had it. And I started smiling. How do people know what you have when you don't know what you have? They see something that you haven't seen yet. And it's wonderful when they take you under their wing. And as a result, I will mentor in a heartbeat. When I see something special in a student, I encourage it because it was done for me and I know what a difference it can make in one's life.
Mm-hmm. Well, earlier you mentioned imagination, and I'm going to ask you about that a little bit more detailed a little bit later. But right now we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be rewarded with more wisdom from Ms. Willa Brigham. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're here with Ms. Willa Brigham. And Willa, we finished the last time talking about your background, and that's very inspirational within itself. But I'd like to ask you about inspiration in fact. And you are a storyteller and you are a writer as well. And why is it so important to give inspiration today in today's society? And I think I asked you that at the end of the last session, didn't I? I believe.
Something similar.
Similar. But anyway, we're talking about now inspiration, and but I think you mentioned that it is important for us to be inspirational, to be as influential as we can as far as what we do to be a good influence. And you touched on some of these items. You want to touch on that for just a little bit before we proceed?
Of course. Anytime you're doing whatever you're doing, someone is watching. Hopefully you're doing the best you possibly can, or being that example of what you would want others to be or do. It's easy to say you will do something, but to actually do it is a whole different story. You teach by example. There was once a saying, don't do what I do, do as I say. Well, that's a bunch of crock, because people are going to do, or your children are going to do exactly what they see you doing. So if your example is rotten and you see it in your children, well, guess who taught them? You need to be what you say you are by your words, actions, and deeds. And that is more powerful than anything. Ask anyone who has done something successful, and they will tell you how they were inspired by someone's actions, their ways, or their deeds in which they were influenced by it. And that's what we do. It's necessary, especially in this day and age. You want to see the good stuff. You want to pass along kindness. You want to share humility. You want to be humane. You want to treat others with respect. You want that to be a part of our world, because unfortunately right now we are going through changes where nasty is getting a pass. And that is not how we're going to live a better life.
Well, we've talked about the fact that you have a passion for storytelling and as well as writing, although we haven't gotten to that yet, and we're going to get to that.
All right.
But as far as art is concerned, tell us about that, as far as some of the things that you've displayed, perhaps, in meetings, various meetings that you've conducted.
I am a part of the African American Quilt Circle of Durham, and it is a wonderful connection of sisterhoods, mothers, aunties, cousins. We pray, we sing, we eat, we dance, we laugh, we talk, and we quilt. We make art of all kinds with fiber and even paper. I had a love for using recycle, so the scrap exchange in Durham, North Carolina is an ideal place for me to buy supplies very reasonably to make creations that are absolutely awesome. It allows you the freedom of creating with your hands, putting an idea down on paper and taking it from the paper to the sewing machine or to the embroidery machine or just needle and thread. It is good for your soul. That's fiber. Paper. I bought these wallpaper books, and the wallpaper was so doggone pretty, you can't just dump pretty wallpaper books. You have to utilize them. So they ended up being the background to note cards. I started creating note cards in 2017. My child went to heaven unexpectedly, and I wanted to just, I couldn't breathe. And God gave me the idea of note cards. And the note cards have headpieces made of hearts. So it was a healing heart behavior that was created in His mind's eye to give to me so I could heal my heart. And I'm still healing, but the cards are absolutely gorgeous. I did not know that's where they were headed. And then He gave me the idea of fidget mats. Fidget mats allow you to play with beads and buttons on mats that allows visually impaired individuals to find things to play with, or special needs persons to calm down, or persons with PTSD to just stroke the various textures and calm themselves. It's amazing what you can do. I did not know art allowed all of those elements, but it does. And I get to share them.
Okay. And speaking of sharing, Willa will be sharing some of her art in a future segment. And so we're all looking forward to that.
Thank
now,
you.
we talked earlier about those who may have been influential to you as far as what you do now professionally. And as far as art is concerned, I'm sure that the renowned poet Maya Angelou has been very influential as well. So tell us about that.
My girl, I met Maya in Massachusetts, or was it New York? She was at a community college, and I wanted to go. And my husband was supposed to come and take care of our young one while I went to the presentation. But he called and said he had a meeting. Now, I am of the mindset there's more than one way to do anything. So when I got the phone call that said he couldn't make it, I immediately started packing my baby's stuff, putting him on my hip, headed for the car with a bag full of things for him to play with because I was going to go. And when I got there, I sat in the balcony, so just in case my baby made a racket, it wouldn't disturb anyone, but I was awe-inspired by this fabulous woman. I loved her spirit. I loved every word that came out of her mouth. It was like she was an auntie or a cousin. She was kinfolks, and I was eating it all up. And when I finished and went back home, I was so inspired, I wrote the poem, Going to See Miss Angelou. I'm going to see Miss Angelou. I'm going to see her today. I'm going to see Maya Angelou. Don't put no obstacles in my way. The clothes are all laid, the bed's all made, and I'm sharper than Billie Jean. Stepping out of this door today, I could be anybody's queen. I'll place my son upon my hip, and I'll carry him like a packet. I'll pack him toys and food and drink in case he makes a racket. It's raining outside, but that's no big deal. My umbrella's in my hand. And if I get warm while I wait for her, I'll carry a handheld fan. So get out of my way, dear man, for today I see Maya Angelou and her girlfriend raise some sand.
That was nice.
Now, the interesting part is, a year or so later, she came back. I was in Massachusetts this time, and she was at the radio station or TV station, and I went and I gave her the poem, and she said, "Thank you, my sister." My heart was in heaven. That's all it took. So yes, she was a great inspiration to me, and she still is, because she writes what she knows, what she believes, and she puts it in such wonderful textures that you just kind of bathe in it. You embrace it. And so yes, Maya was one of my most inspirational persons, along with Ella Jenkins out of Chicago. I took the children to see her at the local library and was blown away. She's playing a ukulele. Did you feed my cow? Yes, ma'am. Can you tell me how? I said, wait a minute, I can do that. And of course, I went home and wrote something too. But yes, people, inspirational persons are all over, and you can choose anyone you like that has the characteristics that you're willing to imitate and use it.
Well, that's very interesting. We have relatives in Winston-Salem, of course. Maya, I believe, if I'm
Yes,
not mistaken,
she was in
is
Winston-Salem.
from Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
Great. Now, I'm sure she is among the favorites
Yes.
of yours. Do you have any other favorite art form?
Thomas Blackshear, Charles Bibb, I love their works. Kwesi out of Mississippi was a quilt artist that I enjoyed. There are several, and of course I can't call their names right now, but I love the fact that they were willing to do what they do without hesitation and without limitations. It gave them the freedom to create, which allows others to have the courage to create. Because sometimes people are worried about what others will say, but the bottom line is what brings you joy. Just do it.
That's a good point, and as a matter of fact, it's a good point to take our last break, and we're going to do that, and we'll be back and finish things up with Ms. Willa Brigham. So stay with us, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. We're here with Ms. Willa Brigham. And Willa, we're going to finish things up in this first part, and I'd like to tell our audience that you will be back with us for part 2. And it's obvious that your storytelling and writing, they are gifts. And we all have God-given gifts, and you just happen to have a passion for these gifts. But sometimes we may have a passion for something, and it's not necessarily a gift. I remember when I was growing up small, I had a passion for playing basketball. I was pretty good at it, but there were a lot of other guys who were much better than I was, and I definitely would not consider playing basketball as a profession. And so even though I had a passion for it, it really wasn't a gift. But as I said earlier, I told these stories to my daughters when they were very small. And when my daughter asked me, well, what is your purpose? And I told her without hardly thinking about it that telling stories and writing about these stories, similar to what you've done. So my question is, how does someone recognize their gift and eventually make it into a passion, if it's not a passion at first, like in your case?
You do that thing that you enjoy doing. It comes very easily to you. You do it without hesitation. You can do it anywhere. It's not a bother to do it. You just do because it's part of who you are. If you are wise, you would take that and fine tune it. I've always had the gift of gab. And when I met a young man who saw me telling stories, he said, "You would be a great inspirational speaker. You should take a Toastmasters class." I did not know about Toastmasters. But when we moved to Rochester, I joined a Toastmasters group. It fine-tuned what I was already doing. I did win first place prizes, mostly in humor because I like laughter and joy. But it allowed me to expand beyond what I was doing into another realm. Fine-tune what you're doing. Yes, you know how to do it and you do it well, but you can always get better. So take those classes. Listen to those experts who are doing it and imitate the success of what they're doing in your own style. Be who you are and go for it. There are no limitations except for the ones you place on yourself.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, you've been very inspiring, and but we've run out of time, but we will be back next time, and you will continue with this discussion. And give us your contact information if anyone would like to contact you further.
I'm WillaBrigham.com, BRIGHAM, as in Brigham Young. And I'm Willa Story at AOL. Send me an email. Yes, it's AOL. I'm still an old-time girl. Grown women act like that.
Great, great. Again, I'd like to thank our audience, and I'd like to close by saying, whatever you may be going through, whether it's good or bad, just keep this in mind, that there's always more good things coming your way. And we'll see you the next time.